Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Welcome back to Alpha to Omega Conversations for a New Earth. We're your hosts, Matt and Alyssa Omega. How are you feeling tonight, Alyssa?
Doing great. Nervous. Big topic tonight, but I'm very excited.
Good. Yeah, big topic, one we feel really strongly about and one we're excited to share. Also, a big night for us. This is the first night that our show is going fully live out to the universe. We have our friend, little cat has joined as well.
How's that one?
Come on. So while Alyssa is kindly giving our cat a nice new place to go, I'll just give you a quick summary of who we are and what we're doing. So this show, Alpha to Omega, has been in the works for about a year. We changed our last name to Omega together, kind of in a new thing that we felt strongly about after we got married, rather than one of us picking each other's name. We've got 5 kids between us. We've got a lot of experiences that we go through together, and we try to find the vulnerable crossover between what we're feeling, what we're thinking, what we're doing. And this show is kind of born from a desire to share that with like-minded souls across the universe, maybe even from other planets. We'll see who joins and put the comments on the screen as we go along. So yeah, tonight's show we dedicate to Mother, whatever name you may give to Mother, whether it's your own mother, whether it's a mother from a spiritual or religious practice that you follow, or maybe it's like a name that you aren't aware of yet. Maybe it's something that'll come to you. But we believe that there's a sort of a reunion and a return that is happening and needs to happen in order for this new earth change, shift, ascension to take place. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. So
yes, and most importantly, the mother inside of us all. And I truly believe that. So definitely had to add that to it. Sorry, what were you about to say?
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's something that I've learned from Alyssa. And so I'm excited for us to have this conversation tonight and to go a little bit more into what this reunion and what this wound and what this healing really entails. So going back to our history a little bit more, Alyssa and I both grew up in a very clearly defined religious household where there were certain things that you could talk about and certain things that you couldn't, and certain realities that were like absolute truth and others that were not really even to be questioned. And so when we first met just under 5 years ago, in Sedona, we had a conversation in a creek bed that I'll always remember. Do you happen to remember that conversation, Alyssa?
I will always remember that as well.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, it was big. And this was one of the first things that we found a shared perspective in, which was, why do we not understand or know about Heavenly Mother? And we're both in our 30s at this point. We both have children that are growing up quicker than we could ever imagine. And so we really had a deep conversation about it. And in the years since, we've had a lot of fun. We've been fortunate enough to travel around to a lot of different cultures and countries and learn a lot of different spiritual backgrounds and beliefs. And it's so crazy. In every single one of them, it's like there's the era of the gods, and that's like the era that we're in now, the last 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years, where it's patriarchal and everything is kind of built toward progress and ownership and different patriarchal things that are so deeply ingrained in our society that it's hard to even really list them all. But then there's a time before that was like the mother of the gods, and like every culture has one. Most people don't know this, but Gaia, like the super popular TV channel that you can stream and all this content is on, Gaia is actually like the mother of the Greek gods, and no one knows that because she's been like wiped from that. Now Gaia just means earth. When people think Greek mythology, they think Zeus, they think Kronos, they think Hephaestus and all these other gods, and sure there's goddesses too, but before all that, there was like an era where the universe and the world worshipped the mother, and that has shifted. And we believe that there's going to be a return. And so that's what we're still very much uncovering what that means and what that looks like. And we're excited to have that conversation tonight. So
yes, and please, like anybody that is here, I want to hear what you guys think about it. Like, do you believe that there is a feminine god, or is it just all masculine? The women are just kind of like a helpmeet for the man, who is really the the big guy in charge. We just kind of are, side piece, fancy side piece. I mean, I know most of the girls I see here don't agree to it. But yeah, I want to hear your guys' opinions. I really want to open the conversation. So I know Matt has prepared some questions for me. I asked him not to tell me just so that, it's going to be, I might have to say, I'm not touching that one yet. But I want to hear what you guys think as well. So please answer whatever he asks me too, so that we can bring you into the conversation.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. And we've got our good friend Eve has a wonderful little sentiment to kind of kick us off, which is, this is very unique. I haven't really heard it in this way very much at all. I believe God is feminine. So that's a very strong, powerful statement. And when I say it, it resonates. It rings true. And I can't argue with you one bit, Eve. I really appreciate that statement. And I think that kind of leads us right into where we go. So I don't know what it feels like to be a woman existing in this world. I don't understand. I hear a lot about it, and I try my best to empathize with it. And I know I want to have a little girl one day. We've got 5 boys and we haven't been that lucky, but I'd love to experience what it's like to see a girl and help her, see her from infancy and raise her. She's powerful and strong and beautiful. But Alyssa, I'd really like to ask you, knowing that we grew up in a very similar background, what did it feel like to you to not have a feminine goddess or a heavenly mother or anyone like that you could open up to?
Yeah, that was super weird for me. I still remember at a very young age being told, oh yeah, of course there's a heavenly mother, but it's too sacred to talk about. Nobody talks about her because it's just too sacred. And I was like, you don't know anything about her? Nobody knows, what did she, she's there to support God. That's what she does. I'm sure she does a lot of work. She's there to support it. And I was like, it didn't resonate with me, and it felt super weird that if we believe that she's so sacred, that why wouldn't we bring her up? Why wouldn't she be important? And so for me, just that idea, just in that heavenly, feminine power, it was always portrayed, the feminine, as, we're meant to support. We're a supporting role. And that's just what it is. And it never felt, right or true. And that's the kind of religion we were raised in. And also, even in our own home, it was a very patriarchal religion, which has I'll give it so much credit. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was way more. And it has softened and it's gotten, and I hope that eventually it'll become much more of a balanced type of religion. I think it's on its way. But yeah, growing up, it was you're meant to listen and support the masculine. You're meant to do that. And my mom, she was meant to do that for my dad. And I saw that. It was example to me from a very young age. Dad's the one in control, and I had to give permission for everything I do. And that didn't feel right either. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it
I want to know what other people, did they have similar experiences? What were you raised in? Do you still believe in that? I would love to hear.
For sure. We would love to hear a little bit more. We've got a few comments rolling in, but yeah, we'd love to hear a little bit about what were you raised to believe, and then how does that compare with what you found to be true now, or what questions you're asking now? So let's pop a couple of these up, and then I'll ask some follow-up questions. So thank you so much for the comment, Cassie. She says, I've always wanted to know more about the feminine God since I was a child. Got told to stop asking so many questions about her. So does that resonate with what you were saying as well?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was okay, as a child, it was okay to ask that first question. You weren't shamed immediately. It was oh yeah. But if you didn't receive the answer and you asked a follow-up question, you got a good look and it was you take the answer, it's too sacred, or it's, you'll learn in the afterlife. You just got to have faith. And then it was done, or else, you got this different kind of energy that it was basically telling you it's not acceptable to talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I feel that too. And my questions probably weren't nearly as deep because I'm coming from a different side of the conversation, but it still felt off. It felt strange. if something's that beautiful and that wonderful, that wouldn't we just want to talk about it more?
Right. Like, I totally agree.
It really makes sense. And so here's another really important aspect of the conversation that maybe goes into a little bit more about the control that might be at play. From Angie, women were heavily sexualized in my experience, which is heartbreaking to hear, but completely true. So any comment you'd like to make on that one?
Oh, that goes deep. Yeah, it's a very unfortunate reality that we all have lived in for so much time. Like, if you are just a helpmeet, if you are just there to support, then basically all of his needs, it's our job to meet them. And for masculine, one of their greatest needs, their greatest desires, their greatest joys is that sexuality. So automatically, women, here's your main job because you're really, from their perspective, desirable. And that's a whole nother topic. I don't even know if we probably don't even want to get into
right
at this point, but yes, absolutely. It's a very unfortunate situation, but it's a conversation definitely worth having. And me finding my empowerment in sexuality looks so different than the way I was raised and the way that I thought was acceptable, that it's been really interesting and amazing to start talking with other women that actually share the same views that I'd love to share at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. So please keep the questions coming. If it's something that we feel could fit better into a different conversation, we'll have a different conversation about it. We get to do these every Tuesday is our plan. So we're excited to continue the conversation. So it's interesting, and it's kind of hard to understand why this sort of came to be in the first place. It seems like, from what I've learned of these matriarchal societies and these cultures, they were really good. Like the art and the different things that get excavated over time, and the cities and the layout that we learn, it just feels very inclusive. It feels very natural. And I'm kind of confused why man would go to such a great effort to erase mother or his
Right.
his goddess.
And let's talk about that for a second. In ancient civilizations, when it was more matriarchal, let's talk about what it actually looked like, how it actually flowed. What was the dynamic of it? Because it's very different in a patriarchal society. It's very much the power. But in a matriarchal society, it was all about the mother was the one to make sure everybody mattered. It was the piece, just like a mother in a home. All my children matter. No one person is more important. It was about leadership in a righteous way, that it was like everybody has a place, and it was about equality. It was just like, hey, because I have this ability to care so much for everyone and multitask, caring it all at the same time, it made sense for the women to be in charge. And it brings me back to, I'll just always bring up the Barbie movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has so much significance to us in real life and what we've been through. And why would they want to do that? Is that what your question was? Why would?
Yeah, where did it begin? If it was going so well, what was the purpose of deleting her or trying?
First of all, to be like, I could do it better. Watch. Wanted to prove something. Here, you've been playing this role, I want to play that role, and I believe I could do it better. And that threat of being wrong about that made you want to delete all of that, so that you can hide your mistakes and hide, whatever insecurities you have about doing it. And every wrong thing that you did that was harmful, you also want to delete that too. But there's always an excuse. There's always whatever your justification was, and because it's going to be better. And if that's what it is, I got to be better. And that will prove every bad thing I've ever done was worth it. It's a sacrifice worth it, because I'm going to make a better world. It's going to be better. It's going to be more beautiful. We're going to be able to create so many more things. We're not going to be taking care of everybody all at the same time. We're going to be focused and go to the ends of the earth to just make it the best ever. When mother was like, it takes time. Everybody matters. It was a slow. It wasn't all about achievement and ruling. It was about love and community and working together. And it's entirely different when it's like, this isn't good enough, and I want to be different than I am. And it then tried to shift the energy. That's how I understand it. I would love to hear, has anyone else looked into this, and what have you discovered? But that's what I found, like looking back at what I have researched, it was a very different time. And there's a reason why, and that part obviously I didn't read. That's just like I'm trying to tune in here.
Hmm.
Why would you want to take all that down? It was for the idea that you could do a better job. And unfortunately, you haven't. You have, I will say, you have in a lot of ways. Like the potential that in so many ways that we're able to achieve with sacrificing all the other things, which is terrible things that you've done in order to do it. But like the capacity a human has to destroy and take and build up one thing and call this your achievement. Yeah, you did great. But guess what you did in the meantime? And if you look at the whole picture, it's off balance for a million reasons. But
Yeah.
that was the reason why. And I believe that's how it came to us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And as you're describing it, it feels like history, what we've been taught, what we read in books, what we see drawn on caves, and then herstory, which is more like what we feel and what we understand intuitively. And there's a big difference between the two. So when you're describing the shift that you're kind of taking us through from matriarchal into patriarchal society, is masculine and feminine the same thing? Is feminine that part that's inclusive and wants to take care of everyone and sort of takes time, and masculine's sort of like conquest and conquer and control? Is that the same
Or are you
thing?
saying it's matriarchy and patriarchy, or
Yeah, like is masculine and feminine just the same? Are these the two energies behind? Like is mother?
well, technically, when we were talking about matriarchy and patriarchy, we're talking about rulership, which I'm sure there was like some amount. And that's what was cool about seeing the Barbie movie. It was like, oh, I realize now that I didn't give you enough say and that you wanted to participate more. But guess what? It sounds like he didn't really ever say that. He just wanted to take it and prove it. Maybe there was a lot of vulnerable conversations that should have happened between Ken and Barbie that was like, hey, I really feel left out. I really feel like I could do a lot more here that you're not really allowing us to, and have that conversation versus like, screw this, I'm taking over. There may needs to be a lot more vulnerable conversations between these two aspects. And I want to make clear from the get-go, like every single human has both masculine and feminine. And there is no placing you into this category where you're not both. Every single person is both. They do have more of one or the other, but we're both. And this whole situation that we're all going through, we're playing these more stronger roles, being either more feminine or more masculine. But in some way, we've all been patriarchy, we've all been matriarchy, and we're all trying to find the balance between the two, right? So
Right.
I definitely don't want to be placing like men and women. This is about a masculine dominating culture and a feminine dominating culture, and the difference between the two, and how hopefully we're ascending into something where we've all learned lessons and we're all more aware of ourselves and capable of doing a lot more than we were able to thousands of years ago. Let's find a way to rule ourselves independently, but together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think Angie is right on track with what your sentiment about this is. The duality, as you're talking, I'm picturing the yin and the yang, the perfect balance. And the thing I love about that, or like the Pepsi symbol, is you've got like a little dot of the dark and the light in each other. So they're in perfect balance and harmony, and they see themselves in each other. And I love that little call out to duality too. So it sounds like, if I'm summarizing correctly, in the beginning, it was like this little boy enamored with his amazing mother. And it's like, I'm going to do everything that you say. I love it so much. This sounds amazing. Kind of like the Barbie movie. And then over time, he's like, you know what? I think I've been watching long enough. I could probably do it better than you. Why don't you take a seat in the back and I'm going to drive for a while. And then he's like rocket ships, and now she's in the prison, and all these other crazy things have happened. And now the new earth is like this opportunity to bring both together. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I like the way that you framed that. It is really about finding a way to see all that has happened and see the beauty in the ability to for everybody to have taken a turn to show what we're all capable of and become more aware of ourselves and what we're capable of when we just try to be better and more and whatever we want to hide from each other, from ourselves, and how that can harm other people. Like Ken would have never known what he was capable of. But because he had the experience, he was able to have forgiveness for what he had done and be able to settle back into where he really is capable because he tried to do it all. And without the opportunity to try to do it all and to fail at many things, he would have never believed it. So there's been so many opportunities for the masculine to prove to himself that he was wrong. Like, that's us. I'm not saying man. I am saying, like, you say, oh, it's better to. It's better to force something. It's better to control it all. It's better, it's better, it's better. All these things that are just, it's not in nature with nature. It's not in nature with natural love. Natural love says, you matter, I matter.
Mm-hmm.
And we're meant to play our own parts and protect each other, but not reign over. We're here to be, what's that word? Stewards
Right.
of each other. Like if somebody's in a place of helping us someone else, it's not to control them, it is to steward over them because they need more help than somebody else, because they are more vulnerable to whatever they need. And that's what we're meant to do. That is the natural mother role. When we're healthy mothers, whether you're man or woman, I mean, that part of you that has emotion and that tends to other people emotionally and cares for other people, that feminine aspect is naturally meant to do that. And when we lean back into it, and if we go even deeper and we say, so we have it all inside of us, right? And let's call this the masculine, this the feminine, okay? Heart and mind, right? We are here to make sense of both parts of ourselves. And men are more dominated by mind, and women are more dominated by their heart. And that's on purpose, okay? And we're going into an age where we're meant to stop thinking so much and start trusting. Okay? Surrender to the emotions and understand the wisdom behind it. What is it trying to tell you? Sit with it longer. Allow this time and space for your feelings to matter and everybody else's, and then allow it to naturally settle into something new. That's the wisdom of the heart. When the mind is like, no, I got to figure it out now. I got to do better. And I gotta. When, if you see this as the child, ready to explore in this new world that I've never experienced. Mom has already been here for however long, but I am the child and I'm excited to try all these new things. I don't even know my capacity. What are my limits? Like, that is our mind. That is the aspect of us. That is the masculine that is ready to explore the world. And when we tether those two things together and actually seek our heart, be like, heart, I would love to do this. This is what it makes me so excited. How do I do that? And we actually allow our heart to be the mother guiding our mind, we're in sync. We finally have recognized that this is a beautiful thing and this is a beautiful thing, but this is not supposed to rule this and this is not supposed to rule that. But when we trust it, when we trust each other, it creates the most beautiful, like, co-creation of reality. I want to experience this. How do I do that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it naturally comes because you're resonating with whatever that conversation would look like and feel like. So you're already creating it just by expressing it and listening. That's the co-creation process. And that's what we're all doing, whether it's microcosm or macrocosm. It's all happening within us and then outside of us. But it's a story that you're not one or the other. You are all things, especially masculine and feminine. And to see the dynamic of how these things, part of you that's masculine that wants to control and wants to be right and wants to do these different things, or the part of you that could be masculine and be like curious and ask the questions and be like, what next? I'd love to do that. That's great. Let me go do that. But always be humble in that. We keep our minds humble in our masculine part instead of being better and be the protector and be the knight in shining armor. Be like, I'm just going to be exactly as I am and be vulnerable and true. And I'm going to ask for help and I'm going to be willing to do what I can to help, but not to overpower, not to be right, not to be cool, just to be. Because love meets us there.
It makes so much sense. One of my favorite thing about these conversations and why we chose to call this Conversations for a New Earth, we've learned that we learn so much in conversation. So from the comments and from what Alyssa's just shared, I'm learning that I have kind of demonized the present and glorified this ancient past like way too much into these two different places. And what I'm learning is they're meant to be tethered together. And that, like, it seems like in all these, places that we learn about, it's either a king or a queen. It's either matriarchal or patriarchal. And what, if I'm hearing this correctly, it's really not either or. It's finding we've learned this phrase called hierogamic union, which is like a sort of like a holy balance of these energies. It's a union of both. Is that what you're saying?
It brings me right back to like Arthur. We are meant to sit at a table. We are literally meant for everybody to have a voice to matter, and to say, until everybody's heard and we understand everybody and we treat everybody just as important as everybody else, we're not done here. It's not about one person making decisions for anybody else. It's about somebody that's willing to listen and help each other be heard. That's what like the mother's supposed to do. I care and I listen. And then we try to co-create what would be the best solutions and all those things, but it's never supposed to be one person making decisions for someone else. It's supposed to be somebody giving wisdom, somebody else listening. It's meant to be a symbiotic relationship between you and everybody else. Mm-hmm. But this part missing whenever we try to dominate or try to rule. It's not meant to be ruling. It's it's eventually supposed to be, we're all one. Let's have more conversations. Let's figure this out together. Let's agree on what together, the structure, the whatever, like there is a need for respect of different kinds of things in order to protect each other. So like laws are supposed to be what can protect each other's rights, and how do we know that we're protecting each other that way? But it's not to control or to have, something over the other. It's always supposed to be balanced.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it seems so different than even what I've allowed myself to imagine needs to happen. So it just sounds kind of difficult. It sounds like taking two very different things, and we experience this all the time. It's difficult to reach a consensus or reach like a midpoint. Absolutely. That both mother and father, masculine and feminine, feel good. So maybe before we get to that, can you describe a little bit more about what has this felt like? What have you felt has been like for mother? Like this age that we've been in, where she's kind of taken the back seat. We've seen the Barbie movie. We kind of get that reference. It's a little bit comical, but there's probably a lot more to it. What is it, in your feeling, what has that felt like?
Probably the greatest pain and the greatest love that ever existed in existence, because that's what had to happen in order to allow the space of time for the masculine to test every theory, like the scientist being like, I can do it better, I gotta be better, I'm not good enough, and never truly getting vulnerable with the feminine being like, I'm worried that I'm not good enough. Like that would have been the vulnerable conversation from early on, right? I'm worried that you have too much, like, I don't know this, and that scares me that I don't know. I want to be better. That vulnerable conversation would have looked very different. Okay, you want more? Like, let's involve you more. Let's do this, let's do that. But at one point, there was a break of like, no, let me get everybody on board for something way better. And it tells a story how it's going to be so much better than it is. Like, you're going to have power, and everyone's going to, like telling at least enough people to get on board with the idea of what it could look like to have this power. Everything is always yours, and you this and you that, just like different than reality, which is a give and take, right? So eventually, these lessons have been learned, and now we're at the point where we're learning how to co-create together, and we're learning how to stand up for ourselves instead of being like, I'm the mother, sacrificing in order to give space and time. Something has happened. Something has shifted. And that's what keeps coming through time and time again through me and my channels and through everyone else I'm, talking to or listening to. There's been a big shift, and that shift is important to recognize, because if you recognize it, then you can see where you can align to it yourself. And the most important shift that I've seen is that you're meant as you're allowed, so I'm going to say feminine. The feminine in you is meant to say, I'm sorry, that you feel that way, but I'm going to express myself anyway. I'm sorry that these bills have to be paid. I'm going to find the time anyways. I am no longer going to sacrifice this. I'm going to say, I'm going to trust this anyways. Going to allow this to be most important, even if this means a cost to the other part of ourselves that wants to be right and wants to be on time and wants to be perfect and all those things. So whether it's happening in you or it's happening between the relationships, like let's say, for example, man and wife, woman, mother, it's time to say you're old enough to figure this out on your own. I love you enough to say no. I love you enough to leave. I love you enough to give myself, and I love myself enough to give myself space and time to protect my energy because you need to step up. So it's this time, this shift is saying, I no longer am allowing my energy to be drained by this. I was mom for a long time, but you're old enough now, and I'm old enough to say no. I'm old enough to say, you've had enough time, and I've loved you all this time, but it's time to show you the way home. It's time to show you the way to do it by doing it myself. And I can't if you're just taking all my energy. It's time. It's like, it's go time. And that's the shift that I'm feeling. Does anybody else feel that? Write it in the comments if you do. But yeah, what was even your question? I hope I answered it.
Yeah, we would love to hear if anyone is feeling that shift and what that shift feels like. I think it's clear to see there has been a shift of the feminine having a voice. And the age that we're in now, the age of information, the age of, you could call it the age of a voice, where everything can be broadcast from one end of the earth to the other. It's really difficult to keep things under wraps. It's really difficult to hide things. And I love that about the age that we're in, because we have access to all these voices, and this little broadcast can hopefully make some ripples in that too. But you mentioned that it was the greatest pain and the greatest joy. And I'd like to come back to it, but let's throw a few more of these up here just as we continue to understand what this is feeling like for those who have joined. So love the word trust. Brian, thank you so much for adding that into the conversation. Trust and co-creation of trust. I don't know that I've ever put co-creation and trust in the same sentence, but they belong there. They absolutely belong together. Do you have a comment on that, Alyssa?
I love that. Yeah, I agree. I've never used those two words together, but it's true. Like, trust is not a one-sided thing, right? Trust is something that you do co-create with another person. There has to be two in order to trust to be there, unless we're talking about trusting yourself. But trust is so important, and that means two people agreeing to something and then living by it. So I do love
Yeah. I'm going to think about that a lot more, because I would say Brian and I are on that same wavelength. I'm trying to understand what that means, because as someone in what I'd call like a masculine dream or experience, it's like, I want to be right. When something's happening, there's all these little things that fire. That's like deny, hide, project, defend. Like, it just keeps coming. And it's like all these defenses that I think over thousands of years have just been placed in there, either in my DNA or my behavior or wherever it is. I didn't put them there, but I've grooved them into myself enough that that's what flares up first. And what Brian's saying and what you're saying as well is like trust. It's like slow down, lean back, lean in, feel what else may be there. And then from Angie, another great insight: women are expected to fully self-sacrifice. That man keeps coming, and she's just like, okay, well, if you can't beat him, join him, or wherever it goes. So that's what you're describing.
at one point, that was the cost. Maybe at some point, mother had to, like, maybe the child wasn't going to live. Like, literally, I know how this was. My firstborn, all day long, no matter what, all night long, screaming for the first 8 months of his life. All I remember, I'm sure there was like a lot of good moments, but all I remember is screaming. And it broke me. I wanted to be a mother my entire life, all through the night. Like, and I had so much anxiety because I'm like, I would give you anything, but there was nothing to help him. Just to help him, all I could do was self-sacrifice to survive, because I loved him enough. I wasn't going to give him up. There was another option other than letting him go, and I wasn't going to do that. So there are, whether it's in history or in the story, there's points at which love had to do that. That's what that energy did for a time. But the most beautiful thing that I understand now is that it has changed. Love doesn't do that anymore. Love has done that. It's done. Now that child isn't screaming. He's just arguing and wanting to be right. And the best thing you could do for him is stand up for yourself and say, no, you go to your room or I'm leaving. And that power to say no, because it's not time anymore. This child has grown. That masculine is ready. Allow it the space and time to figure it out by just standing your ground and saying no and leaving, and then let him feel the pain of that. Oh my gosh. Well, and then let him miss it. Let that space, that sacred space happen. The best way to love someone is to leave them for a time in love while holding the space. Say, I love you so much. I really hope, and still support them, but not at the cost of you. Love separately and remarkably see what it does for them and for you. And that's a very different way of being. And it wasn't that wasn't necessary, and that love, that's what's kind of programmed in us, like, oh, I love you so much. That was, it was for me. It was like, did I just give everything? I just give everything. But to truly love now, it's asking for something different. Not that you're not going to have a child that may not need that at times, but in general, instead of programming yourself to say love stays no matter what. No, it doesn't. It might have. But is that now? And is that what you're meant to do? Because question that. Because the best thing you could do for someone and for yourself might be to leave, whether that just means leave the house, take a break, take a breather, find something else. Space. Space is sometimes the most holy container. And we don't allow it because we call it love when maybe love is different. So it's worth questioning, I think.
Absolutely. Our definitions that we have lived out may be ready to evolve, and they may be ready to turn into something different. And so I think we understand this pain. I feel like the pain is pretty well pronounced, but you also said that it feels like the greatest joy. Can you speak to that part a little bit?
Love, I think.
The
Right?
greatest,
One and the same. I'll go by either one.
right.
But
What is that side of it?
so the amount of love always grows by the amount that you've offered. So however deeply you tended to something, cared for something, offered something, the greater love grows. And I know as a human experience, there's no one that could argue that. If you had, the more you give to someone, that's like even just Christ consciousness, like Jesus talking there. The more you serve, the more you love, the more you do, and the more effort you put into somebody, the greater the bond, the greater the love. And so imagine one of the greatest sacrifices ever been made from the feminine to masculine to say, I'm just going to hold space and allow you to do all these things because I know the only way for us to make it through is to still be here with you. I still got to show up because you may destroy yourself or everybody else. Like I'm still going to show up. And I believe for a space and time, like we sacrificed as that feminine. I'm just going to silence myself. I'm going to silence my feelings. I'm going to hold it all in and just survive for the ones I love. Survive. But now it's about opening up. It's about expressing those feelings, whether it's just to yourself, to your truth, like allowing the space to be heard, even if they're not going to listen, still find that sacred container to honor that and to listen to that. Because it's not time anymore to survive. It's just time to hold the space to listen to yourself, to each other, and to create as much space as you need for those that aren't listening. Just give them the reason to come back, or maybe they won't at that time, and just accept that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It seems like there's just a shift in the conversation that is ready to take place. It's ready to turn into something that's more about where are we, and let's just be honest about it. I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. And I could say as the oldest child that I felt immense pressure at a pretty young age to be more than I felt like I really was. And that's where a lot of the pretending comes from. It's like, if you don't feel strong enough to do this, you act like you are. You fake it till you make it. And that became like my favorite phrase for like 20 years. And it was just like, if I believe it, I can achieve it, and I can be better, and I can be stronger, I can be bigger, faster. And the more time has gone on, the more I've realized like that hurt. That hurt pretty deeply. So my next question would be, what message do they have for each other, the mother and the child? What message would start this conversation? You've said a little bit about like, go to your room, I need some space, that's not working for me. But So maybe it's just the other message, but what needs to be communicated between these two that have experienced pain from the dynamic that has been around for so long?
It's a great question and such a loaded answer. Not loaded, but
We
so
can
many.
start with one. Yeah, we can start with one. So maybe let's start from the child to the mother. There's deep pain there. But
Right.
it's a little bit out of reach. So
Right.
what does he need to
Imagine
hear?
just from the human experience, what does a child go through? What does a child go through? One, first, they can't talk. Like just to the experience of being, forgetting everything and being born again, being born into something new where you truly don't, you have amnesia. It's just new, 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 which is its own beautiful thing that we can go into another conversation. But to experience that forgetting is traumatizing. It really is. It's beautiful because everything is so exciting and new. Like you're used to everything, but for a child, it's like, oh, here, bubbles. Like there's so much thrill, but there's also a lot of like, what is going on? Where am I? So you go through that without a voice, and that's pretty hard too. So the child is going to experience all these different emotions without the ability to express it. And by the time that they can express it, they then have to try to understand what's going on in their surroundings. So if they're in a world and in a home where mom doesn't listen to her feelings,
Mm,
she's already suppressing all that. The child is like, I'm having these feelings, and most likely you're going to be like, yeah, it's fine, because she doesn't know how to handle her own feelings. She doesn't know how to work through them. She's going to silence him or her all the same, right? So from the child to the mom, it's the most vulnerable conversation of like, why didn't my feelings matter? What was it I was missing? Like I saw you in pain and I didn't know what to do, and vice versa. But it's just the most vulnerable conversations that hopefully everybody can eventually have with their parents at some point, even if, and the other part is like by the time you actually get out of the circumstances that you're in, you're out of the house, you're not going to be under the rule of whatever they are. You've kind of shut it all out. So then it's about opening it opening it all back up. It's about opening it all back up, all the parts that you were like, I gotta survive, I gotta survive. And so that's why QHHT has been so cool and amazing. It's like, let's go back to these moments, these experiences, to see what was there that now could have a voice. And now we're not in it, we can make sense of it and say what we needed to say, even if we couldn't back then. So piecing it all back together and having those conversations. And I say all the time to some of my people I work with is just, there is no reason to limit yourself from having these conversations, even if those people aren't ready. There
right.
is a way to tap into a consciousness of them in another state where they can listen. And if you can tap into that and like ask for their higher self, be like, I want to talk to the higher self and I want to know these things, and start to feel what these answers are. And that's what I did. Like I figured that out like about 7 years ago. Like I did this for my dad. And because I just felt like there's no way, he just can't hear me. But I was able to get answers and feel finally healed in ways that I don't think I would have ever experienced in this lifetime. But I already had that. So the next time I saw my dad, it's like, I know this is just an old version of it. Eventually you say sorry and you get it. And it was also like, I apologize that you're going to still go through that. But when that happens, I want you to know, I see you. I know. And I eventually say sorry. So it's okay. Just like see it as it is versus make it mean something about you. Because you
Mm.
can heal without other people needing to show up for you. You can do that. That's the other great thing about quantum healing. It's like there's no limit to what you can heal without the need of anybody else to do that.
Yeah, I'm getting very emotional over here. I'll see if I can put some words to it, but really appreciate Angie's. It sounds like we have a lot in common, so we'll have to keep the conversation going. But being the oldest is its own thing, being the middle is its own thing, the youngest, and anyone in between. There's so many things, and I haven't thought about it the way you described it, but like humans, we do take like longer in our life cycle to develop than most creatures, it seems like. So we're here to feel these quantum endless feelings, and sometimes we don't think they matter. And I just the QHHT reference, two of the biggest QHHT experiences I've ever had in the last couple months, took me back to memories I didn't know I even had. One was when I was 2 and one was when I was 3, and just so many tears and so many feelings came out. And one of them I was able to discuss with my parents, and I learned that everything I thought I knew about that experience was actually not even true. So all these things that had been hurting me for like 30 something years, they were not only misunderstood, but they also hadn't been expressed. And there's so much healing that's come into me. And now it's like there's some topics that I'm able to share with. We've got 2 little guys that are just 2 and 3, and just being able to share with them what I felt at their age from what I taught myself in these journeys that we've been able to go through, from the mother that's the feminine that's right here and been in there all along, has just been really, really remarkable. And so let's summarize it. What I heard you say is, in a nutshell, your feelings matter. Is that about right? From the mother to the child?
Yeah, we started with the child. And it's just like I've been in so much pain, but I didn't know how to how to express it. And I sensed in you so much pain, but I didn't know how to understand it. And it was freaking scary. And I just had to figure it out. And I did all these things. And then I didn't, because that connection is broken. If there's not a strong safety where you can feel like I can just tell you exactly what I'm thinking, even if I don't know, which hopefully we're working to find a better way to really connect. And like, that's what I'm trying to do now. It's just like, let's find a way anyways. Like, where do you feel it? Oh, but yeah, it's just a vulnerable conversation. I think what the child is saying is like, I was scared to death and I love you so much and you were everything to me, but I didn't know how to connect with you. And I was just trying to survive and try to help you because I love you so much. I didn't want you to hurt and I didn't want to be a burden. And I didn't want to do something that would make you not love me and not want me. And, and then the mom is like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I've been doing that. I didn't realize that I hurt you that much. I didn't realize that that's how you were experiencing this. And I wasn't perfect. And I wish you would have told me because I would have been able to like understand myself better. It's just all the honest, vulnerable conversations that we can have, whether it's between brother and sister, husband and wife, mom and child, the just getting real about how your experience was, even though it's uncomfortable, even if you don't have the words yet, just finding the safe space to do it, whether it's with the person it happened with or just somebody that can listen to your experience. It's worth the time. It's worth the effort that it takes to find the words anyways, regardless if it happened 50 years ago, because if you still have a memory of it, it's because it still lives inside you and because it's hurting. So it's always worth the time. And so I love what we've done with creating this weekly QHHT thing because it goes back into memory and it also goes into psyche and it goes into subconscious that's trying to weave together these ideas. And it's almost like dream state, you're going in your dreams every night, but are you taking the time to listen to what you are experiencing? Because that's what you can do. We can all have the capacity to go do these great, incredible, deep healing work spiritually, emotionally. But are we taking the time?
Mm-hmm.
Worth it.
Yeah, I love it. So, and what I'm understanding and feeling right now, which is great. I love when I can feel my heart. I tried to notice it coming back online the last few years, but mother, feminine here, and then masculine, father here. So how do you think we can calibrate? How can we check if we're tethering both together? It sounds like it starts here within us and then maybe extends outward. But how have you learned any ways we can check in with ourselves?
The first thing that came to my mind, which has been calling to me for a while, and I haven't even read it or listened to it
now. Okay, turn on our listening ears.
Do it, and it's called like the heart mind. I don't know what they call it exactly, but it's on Gaia. There's this whole entire series, and it's about calibrating. And it's like scientists and psychologists and all these people that have found this way to calibrate your mind to your heart. And it's like heart. We'll have to tell you.
Are you kidding me? What?
Maybe somebody else has.
We haven't talked about this.
Well, there's so many episodes. There's so many different things on Gaia, but yeah, I really do want to look into it. But as far as me, the only thing I found is to be able to speak freely. So like whether it's journaling or just speaking out loud to get really vulnerable. And it also reminds me of the book, No Bad Parts. I think we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
But in the idea that you have all different like voices inside you that could have different experiences and have different perspectives, and that parts of yourself has felt abandoned and disconnected to the other parts, so it's not truly unified. It's just kind of like a part of you that like got shut down as a child, and that aspect has a voice and has its own experience and has all the reasons why it's never going to come back online. And the parts of you that continued on, those parts have a different experience. So to see that just as the two most important parts where that is happening,
Yeah.
mind and heart, is basically how do you have an honest conversation with yourself? So you journal, you talk, you find a way to find both parts of you and what it really thinks. So your mind's going to say, I don't have enough time for this. I'm going to this and this and this and this. It's going to give you all the reasons why you
future, anxiety, worry, stress, fear.
But then it's time for the heart to speak. It has to take the time to listen. Now you ask your question. So how is it okay to still do that? It depends on what the conversation is, but with all these things still here. And then you listen. And then something new comes in, you give a voice to that. It's like, well, and you're going to hear it. Like, that's what's so cool. Like, if everybody can do this. And especially when they have this capacity to pull in this voice that answers all the questions. It lives inside you, that I have no doubt, because I experience it all the time. But there is another voice that has the answer, that is there waiting to give you the answer and to listen to all the issues and all the reasons why you can't and you're not good enough and blah, 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 blah. Just holding the space to listen. And then even though you don't know what's coming, you say it anyways. So sometimes you can just like kind of sense what it's saying. You don't say it out loud. It helps me to just start speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it's going to be, but I just allow it to come through, and then I'm listening too. So it's like I started to have that conversation. And at first I'm like, that's a crazy person. Like, that's a schizophrenic. You could talk to yourself, but two different parts. There's something wrong, but it's not. Everybody has the capacity to ask the questions and listen to the answers and see that there's this beautiful aspect of you that is waiting for those questions to be asked and then answered. Mm-hmm. So that's the best way, is to find a way to express both parts.
I love it. That's it. Being in sales in my career for like 10 or 20 years, it's very similar. It's like, how do you sell something? Well, usually you have to ask. And how do you find out how you're doing? You ask. And it's a very vulnerable ask, because you're asking yourself. And I think a lot of my life I've been taught not to do that, because it sounds a little bit crazy, a little bit off the rails and weird. Like, what do you mean you're talking to yourself? What, do you have an invisible hearing voice? So that makes a lot of sense. And it reminds me of what Brian said, where it's the trust. Ask yourself and trust that something's there to answer it. That's where your answers come from.
Right. Because the fear says you're all alone.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're stupid for asking that question. Who's going to show up? Like that little like part of your mind that wants to, be that for you and minimize you and diminish you. It's going to try to show up really loud, and you have to just say, not now. Shh, I'm listening. Quiet. Mm-hmm. That's why meditation is so helpful, because you can train your mind to stop trying to bounce around and just sit. Because if you could just sit and listen, all these things start coming up, everything that needs to be heard. And that's why QHHT is so cool, because that is what we do, is to silence all that and see what can come through.
Yeah, that's beautiful and powerful. We've got a few comments coming in from the different places. Angie's on fire tonight.
Yes, Angie, thank you.
Give a couple more shout outs. So totally agree. As an unhealed inner child going into parenthood is how the karmic cycle survives over generations. And it's been a lot of generations. And in order to finish the cycle, it sounds like these questions and trusting ourselves to give the answers is a huge element of what it's going to take.
Yeah, I wish college was how do we heal the trauma we went through as a child now that we're becoming an adult. Like, if we did something there, guess what? We would all be such incredible humans, because we would then be able to say, okay, like whatever was lacking in my childhood, I've already overcome. And now going into adulthood, I know exactly who I am. And it doesn't matter what I do, because I'm going to do it like with a clear mind. And you just go into what you love, go into exactly what it is that you feel like called to do, and just start creating from that place.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing you in school, and most of the time people are like, I think maybe because people said this would be cool, so I'm going to try it. And now I've committed, and now I have all these, you go so far, you just keep going. I think that college could be used in such an incredible way versus finding a way to go into debt and then never use that skill again.
Yeah, well, I think you're describing the New Earth University. We hope to open the doors in 5 years. I guess we'll see how long it takes.
Figure that one out.
Completely, it's like the unlearning, the undoing of all the things that you've done to yourself.
And even elementary school, like if they could just learn how to see things clearly in the way of love and forgiveness and not allowing it to mean something about them, like how much better off would they be? Yeah, they can learn how to read and write, but also, and more importantly, they can learn how to function as a healthy human. That to me, that seems like so much more important.
Mhm.
But yet we don't spend that time. We spend all the time on memorizing all these things that nowadays not even useful.
Yeah, it's just
Why?
it cuts them and separates. So now your mind is in one quadrant, your heart's in another, and your voice is stuck in the middle and doesn't really know what to do
Right.
because its job has been distorted. So it's been right, silence. So that would be my next question. Is some of us, we're all in different places, but some of us, our heart and minds feel kind of inaccessible to each other especially in high stress situations, or maybe in relationships or patterns that are very familiar where we've just like set them in stone. So what would you say to anyone who feels like these patterns are just too stuck? I'm trying, I'm talking, but nothing's shifting, nothing's changing, and I feel like it's just repeating over and over still endlessly. What would you say to someone who feels like there is no return from where they've gotten themselves?
Well, first of all, there's always somebody that can help hold space for you. So even just finding somebody that is willing to hold space, that has a very loving, accepting, wise persona, can just hold space for the same person. Just have an attitude. You hear an echo?
Keep it did a little, but not much.
Okay, hopefully nobody else. All right, what was the question one more time? I had an answer, but I got distracted.
Yeah, it's a very vulnerable question, which is like this sounds amazing, this sounds wonderful, but what if I feel like my heart and mind are too far away from each other, and try as I might, I just keep, repeating the same patterns and kind of like hurting those around me the more.
Right. Well, I would say again, go back to what I said. There is space, even if it's only one-sided, finding the words is paving the way. So trust that by expressing, no matter what it is, and finding the next word, the next scream, the next cry, whatever it is, you just keep going, believing that there is something listening. And that if you just keep explaining, eventually it'll clear the path so you can hear what's on the other side. So see it as if you're digging. Okay, well, this and this, and just keep talking till there's a point where it's so painful. And then it's like, I don't even think I can go any further. Go further. You're cleaning out the line. But then you hear something on the other side. And I've been through that more times than I want to admit. But the deepest ones, it truly did feel like the end.
Mm-hmm.
But I just kept going and I didn't give up. And then boom, everything was there on the other side. And I would have never known had I not kept going in the pain and in the sorrow and in the anguish and in the expression of what that looked and felt like to going through that. So by allowing myself to just sit with it and find a way to express it, gave me the freedom to see that there was another side to talk to. And then in that place, you can go back there and be like, okay, you know that it's there, and you can tether right back in and be like, okay, so I know this is here, and you can talk with that aspect. And because the line is clear, but it's a very honest thing to say, like, I feel like it doesn't exist. Like, it's just me, and I feel alone, and that's all I feel, and no one's listening. I don't hear anything hearing me or answering. That's what a lot of it, and that's what I felt. Like, especially in my loss of my faith, there was months where I dropped to the floor. This was like 12 years ago. Oh my gosh, it was like 14 years ago. Jackson. I know we just hit the line, but there was a time period that I truly felt like I had never cried out so much to God And there was nothing but silence on the other side. And that's another story I'll definitely tell you. But there's a reason why it's worth saying it anyways, expressing it anyways, finding a way to just believe that it's worth pursuing. Your voice matters. And I promise you, if you just go a little further, love will meet you there. And I promise my life on that truth. And if it's not there yet, it's because you just got to keep going. So that's my final tidbit.
You win. You got more tears. Takes me back to our wedding day. I think you shared something very similar with me and our older boys, and I'll never forget it. And so if things do feel difficult and if it feels impossible, just go a little farther, see what meets you there. Time for my next session. We've got a request for our QHHT session on deck. Sounds great. Let's get that scheduled. So thank you, all of you who joined. Those of you who are watching this after the fact, thank you for spending some time with us. We'd love to share more updates with you and links for shows as we continue. Those can be found in the show description on YouTube or in our bios on Facebook. So please just share your basic info and we'll keep you in the loop, and we can't wait to see you next time.
Yes. Love you all.
Bye-bye.
Till next time. See you next week.